welcome back. So, I'm gonna do a follow-up on my last video, which is this one, Underground Science number 375. As you can see, this is number 376, so the last one is, of course, 375, Threads of the Pattern, where I was looking into Bighorn Basin, talking about current flows. So a quick recap. Very quick. A lot of information in that one I didn't anticipate, but generally speaking, there's an eddy centered in the global flood, which is the Earth's expansion process. So we're looking at this from the angle of Earth expansion rapidly that has painted the picture of millions of years, but it was actually the global flood. So it was 541 million radiometric dating to the Holocene, end of the Holocene, and to the Holocene, and 66 million is when the Earth rapidly expanded from all the internal pressure buildup. Okay, so last episode we looked at this area. So there's an eddy over here, and an eddy over here, centered here, going this way though. Applying a pressure over here that's then deflecting this way, holding generally this space from protection. So some of the current though gets through into this space and flows down this region, some of which goes into Bighorn specifically and shapes it. So if you didn't see my last episode, I'd highly recommend watching that in its totality. It's like over 2 hours, I know, but it's worth it. My videos are worth watching in their totality. Yeah, sometimes it's kind of slow going, but other times it's like, dude, worth. Where are you gonna get this? You can't get this anywhere. Any amount of time investment. Just saying. But we were looking at this structure, which led us into all sorts of things. Looking at basically interpreting current to go around this way, come in this way, as well as in this way, and go around, some of which went out this way, and wrapped around though, and hit resistance and went off this way. From this resistance went off over here, like creating a channel of pressure over here, which then created this, and going further though, and going off over this way and interacting over here, going further still over here and interacting this way. So there's all these things going on. And then there's current coming in this way, in through here, that then ends up going in this region, as well as out over here, but in this region especially, and then going across along this boundary into this region where it vibrates through what would have basically become the Rockies, the Rockies proper, the Laramide orogeny, by interacting over here, out of this though, so it's flowing down this way due to accretion of material into this region from the Earth's expansion process, known as Baja BC, the accretion, specifically in that framework, not in the traditional framework of how the Rockies formed, but in the contentious framework still within plate tectonics, but that data shows all of this material, generally speaking, moved further than we are accounting for with the flat slab subduction of how the Rockies are said to have formed. So we're clearly missing details, and those details I go into. But I'm not going into that this video, really. I'm going into further things I've come across since looking at Bighorn Basin. I heard about it a couple months ago, and then I realized Myron Cook has an hour-and-a-half video on it, on this right here, this mountain. I believe that's it, yeah. Hard Mountain. It's called Hard Mountain. Is out of place. So, going back real quick, there's currents coming through here, going this way, interacting over here at Yellowstone. And I mentioned coming through here off of this, like current coming in this way and vibrating, going over this way, going this way, vibrating, and then doing the opposite way, going around this way, around this way. Or that might have been the same way. This way, around this way, up here maybe. And across, notably, it goes in. Some of it goes in and catches here. And just kind of, my thought is it fills the pressure in this region, allowing for current to continue forward more, rather than bending it into here, because there was probably resistance here, but it broke through that resistance and continued over here. But this structure physically contributed to creating a offshoot over here. So current went this way over here, went up here, over to here, where then it head-on met a current coming through this way and cutting across and going in. So they collided at this point, basically creating this resistance zone. So there's a current going in that way. There's a current going in across this way, reaching over to here, seemingly exiting here and kind of running into the current cutting through generally, like through here generally, and out this way, which I talked about really in depth in the last one, and like how it vibrates around this, all sorts of stuff. Cool stuff I didn't see until that last one. But Hard Mountain is amongst all of this going on. And it didn't occur to me, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that probably like fits in too with everything. So I started looking into it, and so that's what this video is going to be, is kind of what I've come across since then on not just Hard Mountain, but also over here, down here, in this region. So Hard Mountain is out of place. Like it's, let's just go into this. The Hard Mountain landslide. So it's a landslide, that's how it's out of place. Gave it away. That's what we've concluded. Like, basically, people look at it and say, wait a minute, that's not where it should be. It's like 400 million year old radiometric dating rock on top of, like, I want to say 40 to 60 million. I can't remember off the top of my head. Something younger, that according to the geological law of superposition, where generally speaking things on top of other things should be younger, like the bottom layer should be older. So when something is 60 million and then on top of it is a mountain that's 400 million, it's anomalous, so it needs an explanation. So that's what we're going to get into, is the Hard Mountain landslide. So it could have been, let me just real quick. It is composed of bighorn dolomite from approximately 400 million, and Madison dolomite, approximately a similar age. I didn't actually write down. On top of young, approximately 50 million year old layers. That would normally, this dolomite that's on top, that is Hard Mountain is composed of, is physically also below all the layers. The same layer that the Hard Mountain is composed of is below. So it goes Hard Mountain, 50 million, and then layers down to 400 million Bighorn dolomite, 15,000 feet below. So that just gives an idea of how like anomalous it is. It's on top of itself in the same location, which again, surprise, a landslide. It points to a landslide or something else, which we'll get into alternatives and kind of discuss how. We'll see what happens, but that's not what it is the other thing. It's a thrust fault that kind of lifted it up. Low angled attachment slide, so basically 2%. It didn't slide like down a cliff. It slid down a 2% degree angle slope. So just less than horizontal. Just a little slope, 2 degrees. It's on top of red-banded Willwood Formation that is 50 million and is throughout the Bighorn Basin, which I would say relates to that this current came in and kind of shaped the area, deposited things in layers, made that layer. Mind you, it's a flood current. Extensional features are common, not folding compression. So there's no evidence of thrust faulting. In fact, thrust faulting would apparently be induce compressional features, but the reality is around Hard Mountain is there's extensional features, meaning opposite of what would be expected, which points to a landslide, which would generally provide some mechanism for this extension, the extensional features. The Hard Mountain is a 30-mile by 20-mile chunk, basically, that broke free from somewhere. It has a detachment surface. It is estimated to have traveled 100 to 200 miles per hour. So catastrophic. Think about that for a second. Do you know of anywhere on Earth where people are like, oh yeah, there's a mountain that moved from over here, let's say over here somewhere, I don't think it's like, it might be conclusive at this point. I'm not sure exactly where it is. It's somewhere over here it moved from, and it reached over here, traveling 200 miles an hour on a 2-degree slope. Pretty anomalous. I agree with the fascination that has occurred around it. So maybe I can I took images of the slides, so maybe I can find it. So this is from Myron Cook's video. These are volcanoes in yellow. This is the area that it came from. These are chunks that slid. So this is Hard Mountain. This is another chunk over here, which if we go to Google Maps, here's Hard Mountain. This region right here also slid. So this slid, I believe it's this slid, and something else, like maybe over here-ish. Something else minor relative to these, or this one, and Hard Mountain. This is called Rattlesnake Mountain. This is called Pat O'Hara Mountain. Pat O'Hara, like that. Mountain. Which are players in the landslide in terms of directing it. Over 100 blocks, slide blocks have been mapped. So many. I'm gonna sneeze real quick. So. Okay. 60-mile slide. So let's kind of just measure this. Here's Heart Mountain. Let's go 60 miles. I don't know if that one is actually 60 miles. It might be like one of the further ones, like this one or that one. So let's say that one. Let's start with this further one over here and say 60 miles. It came generally from somewhere over here. So let's say like here. Pretty far. Pretty far. Interesting. I wonder how... Okay, before I get distracted on random thoughts yet. McCullough Peaks is this one over here that I just started from, I believe. Volcanic block 60 miles out in line with straight face, or maybe it's over here then. Straight face of Rattlesnake Mountain. So let's just kind of go through this some more. There's Yellowstone. Here's the slide area. Here's some potential causes. That's why there's volcanoes considered to be worth mentioning, is because that's generally what's associated with how they slid, is an eruption that then kind of pushed it out there. There's the slide blocks. There's the volcano. There's Hard Mountain and Myron Cook. Hard Mountain. He's up on Hard Mountain, so I just kind of started taking pictures of it. This is up on Hard Mountain. Hard Mountain, Hard Mountain. Maybe Hard Mountain. I'm not sure. This might have been one of the other ones, but it might be Hard Mountain. Just some pictures. There's, this one was crazy. I thought this was incredible. It looks so, like it's got a little boop, 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 point. Down, boop, down, boop, down, boop, down. It's like a chakra. Like a chakra. Something peak. Pike Peak, maybe. Hopefully I wrote it down. But that one's real interesting. This is, I believe he was saying this is where it slid from, but, or like related to it. I thought this was real interesting over here. Like, it's got these, and then separation looking, like down in between the layers. Somewhat being etched into it, but shaped in jagged teeth-like way. Really incredible. And then red. So I I found it. Let's see if I can find it again. I believe it was over by this. Was it here? No, it was by a river that I've already forgotten. That's right, there's like a Jeep trail. That looks too big. It's okay. It's not that important. Maybe it's in here. Like in here? No. Where was that? Let's keep going. There's a lot of stuff to go through. Just showing the angles and then the bend in the layer. So I guess these layers just wrap around, boop, and wrap around, boop. Generally. So they're coming over here pretty straight, and then they just run into resistance seemingly. And just bend, fold. Some images, I can't remember what we're looking at exactly, unfortunately. So this is the layer it's from, Bighorn Dolomite. Ordovician. So maybe even more than 400. This says 502 for 409 generally. And it's all the way like up here. This layer. Here's a Madison group too, so this one as well. These, I guess, and probably this one too then. These layers at least are all the way over. So this is like a detachment. He's drawing a detachment zone, like the layers detach and crumple, so that allows for them to start out like layered and then to crumple and become more like that, slanted on top of the detachment, but where below it remains in layers. This was definitely a he's gonna point out the slope of it. I guess I didn't take a picture. I was gonna say it's definitely a slide block, but I'm not completely sure. I think this is a slide block that's older than this stuff. It's angled. Possibly where it's thought to detach from a region. Not sure. Very cool. I just took a picture because it was cool. Then we're gonna look over here. I noticed here it goes up, sharp, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's got like a jaggedness to it going on. And then here, this jaggedness like extends down into these layers and almost like manages to cross between them, it seems. I mean, this is probably eroded subsequent to to a degree, but in the process mostly. Very jagged. Above. And then flat up here. I'm not sure if they're flat across in these jagged portions. This is pretty flat. This layer here. So it's almost like these jagged portions are just being etched jagged, but not actually being like folded. Although, like, I believe he points out certain regions like up here that are folding inward. Then he's pointing at this line there. This is a volcanic, I guess, dike, some kind of volcanic feature that stops immediately at this contact zone. I believe the explanation was there's also volcanoes going off, so as this block slides away, the volcanic material enters the space between the sliding block and fills it, but only down to where the slide is occurring, not at the detachment layer. So above it, it fills, but then it reaches this solid layer that has not, it's not like breaking apart above it, and so it just stops at the contact zone. Stops there. Okay, here's him drawing it, so like there they are. And then they move over like that. There's that peak. I mean, that looks so much like a shalogram. That thing is incredible. Like a chakra of a shalogram. So many degrees. Let's see if I can find an even cooler one. That one was pretty good at matching it. Very, very much like one. Minus the upper half and the sphere between them, or the system between the chakras. Like a single chakra. I mean, look at that. Boom, boom, boom. And it just gets taller and more like upward. Like these go out further and further and flatten. But as they approach the point of the chakra, they get more steeply upward. Maybe not in this one so much. I think you get the point. It looks like a chakra. It looks like a chakra. Because it is one, essentially. Wonder. There's features around it even. Like the whole mountain is a chakra. It goes over and down again. To like over here. Really incredible. And I took several pictures trying to make sure I got a good image of it. Let's say, I think, so that one was like over here too. So notice in the last video, I talked about these like shapes, certain like polygonal shapes here, like a diamond specifically right there, with another diamond like right above it. So we got like a diamond and another diamond generally here. I believe that one was like oh right here. Is this? Even though it doesn't look like it on this map. Let's see if I put everything. Pilot Peak. That's probably it. Pilot Peak. Looks, yeah, that's it. That's it, alright. Oh my god. It's just a chakra standing out. Holy. Whoa. Reaching up in the clouds. I don't see it there. Maybe that. And whoever's image this is down bottom left there. Jonathan Jensen and so on. Sorry guys, I'm just scrolling through the Google images. Oh. Okay, you get the point. I don't want to get distracted completely. How's this going? This is probably fun. Actually, is it fun? It's pretty close. So, the Heart Mountain landslide of northwest Wyoming is the largest known subaerial, so in the air, like not in the ocean, landslide on Earth. Why subaerial? Well, because it's on the continent. Does that mean it's actually subaerial? I'm not so convinced. I would say there's a reason this landslide is so similar to oceanic landslides, because it occurred in the ocean, i.e. the global flood that was on the surface of North America as an entire ocean on the surface of the entire Earth that was here when this was happening, that was participating in the process. So I don't think it's really subaerial as we claim it to be, but that it is on a continent and not in the ocean makes it the largest known subaerial landslide on Earth. It's a pretty strong statement. I mean, almost guaranteed there's ones that have not been discovered that are larger, like in the Himalayas. I would not be surprised. But, or the Andes. But certainly North America is a place where it could be potentially. Actually, the truth of the matter is it's like the largest known continental landslide, like on a continent. Maybe not subaerial, because I just don't agree with that. Like, doesn't seem likely. It seems more likely that it's just been concluded to be subaerial. During its emplacement, more than 2,000 kilometers cubed of Paleozoic, sedimentary, and Eocene volcanic rock slid greater than 45 kilometers on a basal detachment surface dipping 2 degrees, leading to 100 years of debate regarding the emplacement mechanisms. Recently, emplacement by catastrophic sliding has been favored. And they go on to say but the reason they're saying but is because experimental evidence in support of this is lacking. This paper is experimental evidence in support of this, so they're just kind of saying the evidence is lacking, but here's some, essentially. But they're opening with this, but experimental evidence in support of this is lacking. Okay, this is their suggestion is that as it slides, the materials, the carbonate, decomposes and releases CO2 from the friction and the heat of the process, and the CO2 release allows for the mountain to slide frictionlessly so that even though it's only on a 2-degree slope, it moves on that slope without like grinding and stopping. I believe one of these papers even specifically say hydroplane, like it's on water. Like it looks like it hydroplaned. We'll see if we can find it. So this is the introduction. In the early 1900s, a low-angle detachment was recognized at Hard Mountain and initially attributed to thrusting. In the 1940s, the detachment was shown to be a landslide, and in the late 1950s, early 60s, its enormous aerial extent was first established. Since then, debate has been centered on whether emplacement was catastrophic or incremental, which is just what plate tectonics does. It's slow and steady. So like something like this that's not slow and steady, that's catastrophic, actually points to catastrophic processes being part of Earth's history, which Earth's expansion as a whole was catastrophic because it was the global flood. The whole thing is catastrophic, really. It stabilizes and then unstabilizes, becomes out of sync, and lots of things happen energetically, and then stabilizes and crystallizes really in a new state where it's stable. And yes, we see things going on nowadays, but it's not like when the earth was covered in a flood that was flowing and lifting mountains, forming and cutting the continents apart, literally forming everything of the earth. It's not like that time. That's past. That right now we're in basically a perfect equilibrium relative to that. So like that there's this debate going on is kind of like almost a result of the abandonment of ancestral narratives because people don't like the Bible. That can't be true. There can't be any truth in that. The flood didn't happen. Flood didn't happen. People saying this flood happened. There's no evidence for the flood, even though the whole earth is evidence of the flood. Literally every pebble, every mountain is evidence of the flood. If we really go into the current flows of the flood and see how they relate to the final product, see how a final product can be induced by just current flows or incremental, and by which mechanism such a massive volume of upper plate rock could have moved across a basal surface with an average regional dip of only 2 degrees. So they recognize it's not that much of a slope. It's not really that much of a slope. How does this thing move so far? It's really weird. Central to the debate is the character of deformation at the landslide's base. Consensus among workers today is that emplacement was catastrophic, taking on the order of minutes to hours, and that initial movement of the landslide was triggered. So this is where I would disagree, but this is because the best explanation we got was triggered by Eocene volcanic activity. And admittedly, I haven't thoroughly investigated. I'm sure it's related. It's just not the trigger. The trigger is that the flood was happening. The volcanism was a effect of the flood in the same way as this landslide, but they were closely related to one another enough that they've become labeled as the trigger themselves, is basically what I'm saying. Although long run-out landslides are known to occur on high-angle surfaces, one of the long-standing paradoxes in mechanics is how large landslides are able to move great distances on low angle surfaces when frictional resistance demands that they not. So friction should have stopped this process on this low angle surface. What's going on here? There have been a number of hypotheses to explain this phenomenon, but almost no empirical data to support one model over another. Suggested mechanisms to account for the greater than 45-kilometer long runout of the Heart Mountain landslide include hydroplaning on cognate waters, meaning present waters that were present at the time, like the flood, like flood waters, really. So that's what I would say is more likely. It's like part of it, as well as a force imbalance, like pressure from all sides that suddenly becomes overwhelmed from one side because one side like switches its direction, like say, let's say this flow is circulating, but then it like gets past, or something happens where this flow over here is no longer applying the pressure on this side that it once was, but over here, or vice versa, over here picks up, like as Baja BC accretions push into North America and accrete, this path, it gets smaller and smaller, so its velocity gets higher and higher, so it gets more like a focus pressure. It's not as distributed because it's basically taking a pressure that was distributed and then focusing it into a smaller region. So it's possible that the force from over here started to actually press into this region with an imbalance that just overwhelmed and brought Hard Mountain out and these others out in the process without actually having like a substantial change in the pressure on this side of the water currents. It just overwhelmed them. Injection of pressurized volcanic gases at the slide's base. So I guess volcanic gases getting underneath the sliding material to like almost hydroplane in their own way. Earthquake acoustic fluidization, so basically some mechanism of getting some kind of fluid structure or granular dynamic fluidization. Hydrothermal overpressuring, and overpressuring from generation of CO2 gas caused by thermal decomposition of the basal carbonates. Here we present experimental results that support the unique role of carbonate decomposition in the long runout of large terrestrial landslides. So I don't know if I went into this any further, honestly. Here's an image. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some relationship, at least to like a CO2 production. Whether or not that's actually a major contributor is still, I would doubt it, when really the major contributor is the flood. So here's a map. Here's the detachment over here, the breakaway. This is where it came from. Heart Mountain detachment, I guess, came from over here. And then Heart Mountain's over here. It slid away, like, down this slope, and then up a ramp area. So it even went up a ramp, which is, here. Like, it physically, like, went up a ramp here in this area. It ramped up. and went to its present location, but through a ramped area, which is what that is, basically. And then McCullough Peaks moved further over here. So before I get into explaining this in any way, basically I don't have a complete explanation, that's for sure. But what I do have is some more information to couple with it. Similar landslides of nearly 60 miles in Utah. So I was looking for more information on the Hard Mountain landslide because I was trying to find more information on it. And I came across this YouTube video by Bob Bieck, who described 3 landslides in Utah, which are over here, again. So on the larger, zooming out, they're over here. Hard Mountain is over here. 3 there, 1 there. 4, the 4 largest landslides in the world all happen to be in western United States, is a quote from this video. Hard Mountain and 3 at Marysville volcanic field. Let me real quick, before I get to this, just go and I'll just glance. Okay, I didn't really write anything too important. Okay, we can just go past my notes on Hard Mountain and get to this one. So, Hard Mountain and 3 at Marysville volcanic field. While this is possibly a result of the quantity of study in the western U.S. relative to elsewhere like the Himalayas, it still points to anomalous circumstances present. So if we go back to this, now I didn't draw in this region, but I didn't really consider this region before. In my last video, I was talking about currents coming in this way. So there's more to it than I draw here. But what I have drawn is this one, this purple current that I just kind of drew at a width, flowing through here with a far eastern margin of the current where these mountains are, that just flows up this way through the Colorado Plateau and over here, and then up this way and over this way. Mind you, there's other details to the Great Basin extension where this actually used to be closer. Like it was, the batholith was like over here relative to here. It was much closer, but it extended outward at a later time, which we'll get into, I believe. I don't know. Let me hit play on this next one. Play. Okay. So, I found a paper by Maybeck et al. Illustrating the landslides at the Marysville volcanic field. So this is the Severe Plateau landslide. This is the Markagunt Plateau landslide and the Black Mountains landslide. So they're 3 next to each other. And then I said all slides are southward. So I didn't say, but that's what he said. All slides are southward. And they occurred east to west. So they all, like a chunk from up here, moves southward, and a chunk from over here moves southward, and a chunk from over here moves southward in that sequence, east to west. Sequentially, not simultaneously. So this is relevant in terms of nuances of how a current is doing something of this nature. Like it's my thought is, and when I read that or heard that, I was thinking maybe this current was like, because it's coming across all this region, across here, into here, across all these, and running into resistance here. Like, not all of it is making it over here and into this region. Some of it is flowing down here and into this region, but then essentially some of it flows down the boundary of these mountains and flows down and flows down. And where does it flow to? The first landslide. And where is this first landslide? Right along this boundary. Like right along, this is just pointing right at it. That's where the first landslide is. Which made me think, similar to what I was saying before, is this current was flowing down here, running into this current, which is probably contributing to this boundary by them meeting and flowing out that way. Pinching out that way, where then the current from up here starts to get stronger because this is pinching, and so it's getting more velocity. That where it does go, it has a higher pressure, so my thought is it causes a landslide here, but something about that happening, like, causes it to move over, where then the pressure point is a little more focused westward, so it causes another landslide here, and then it keeps moving westward. It causes another landslide next to it. Maybe it gets through there, like cuts through here. Kind of looks like it cut through there. So it didn't really have to cause a landslide because it managed to cut through and interact. But also bending, like going this way, around here. To this corner, where this stretches. And then maybe out that way. Like before, having a pathway where it flowed before the Sierra Nevadas, because there's less resistance here, so I was able to flow across, and then possibly into resistance that led to it bending up this way and participating in the San Andreas Fault region shaping. Certainly there's changes to the terrain while this is happening in terms of extension and motion along like the San Andreas. But so they all go southward and east to west. This location is just along the eastern boundary of the current, the pink current below, flowing northward through Mexico, south of the location of Bonneville flood. So I've just generally said a current is flowing up at this width and generally going up into this region where it interacts with this current from up here. But I kind of, when I drew this, my thought was this current was dominating this region in essence, but really it looks like it's just reaching through this region, while this other current is also reaching through this region and influencing like the Bonneville flood. Like it's going up this way, but it's running into the pressure over here, so it physically bends around because a current's coming down this way, so it's like participates, but then it has like a balance point where it bends back. So there. As these slides occurred late in the Earth's expansion process, it appears the currents flowing through Mexico northward. So this was my initial thought. I mean, it's probably still relatively true that there was current flowing this way, but the Earth was expanding. So it had more and more ocean crust for the water to just fill the space of first in terms of volume, so it didn't have to flow with as much pressure out this way and go through here. So it started to just lose strength that it was going through here as the Earth expanded. So it went through with less and less strength to a point where this current coming down through here suddenly was imbalanced and shoved material. There was a balance point because it was applying a certain pressure from through Mexico, and the other side was applying pressure, but the side through Mexico started to lose its pressure, which made the other side, which was having all this accretion happen, so flowing with a higher force, even though a smaller region of influence, because it was becoming more pressure pointy, more of like a distribution of a flow, like a wide river, and then a tiny focused current in opposition that really, well, met one another at this location especially, and then it overwhelmed it. But it didn't just overwhelm it, it moved the material that was physically forming between their resistances and accumulating masses, like this plateau. It suddenly just moves it, and it slides with the imbalance. But I was thinking maybe because it slides, that's right, because it slides, it basically, like the pressure from the north suddenly has more space that it can occupy. It's kind of like a sort of gravity thing, like the source of the energy of the current is further away from the pressure point, so then it no longer has an imbalance, and it ends up having the imbalance further north again, like over here and then over here. So it moves these chunks, doing so like this. 25 million, so this is where it came from, and then this is the region where it begins to be like the slide region down into here. Anything above this is the source, and then below is the deposition. Source, deposition, source, deposition. So here's another image from someone's thesis, whose name I cannot say. Zamanaya Lavaja. Sorry. Pardon me. I'm sure they get that a lot. But yeah, specifically this region, former land surface segment, bedding plain segment. So this is was just a land surface, and then this was the source, and then it slid onto the land surface to become this deposition of a landslide material over here, and down here. Okay, before I move on from this, because it looks like the next thing I talk about is basin range. How's it going? We're at an hour. The last file was like 17 gigs. I gotta check my hard drive. Properties. 100 gigs free space. Okay. I couldn't post on a Rumble though. I was pretty disappointed without editing it. Cutting it in two halves and posting it on Rumble. That's 2 parts. It's like, I do videos that long. I don't know why I was suddenly 17. The one before, that one was 17.9 gigs for 2.5 hours. And then the one before that was 5 gigs for an hour 45. 6 gigs, hour 46. 2 gigs, hour 46. I don't know if it's the music and I changed the size of my video camera over here at some point. Maybe that kind of made it add some unnecessary complexity to the file. I don't know. I was a little disappointed. Sorry to waste your time talking about that, but let's see. Pseudo-tacholite. So in this region where these landslides are is found pseudo-tacholite. It's a tacholite. Just look it up. Tacholite. Not sure if this is what it is. It's a pseudo one because it's not actually. Maybe that's volcanic, but this one is not volcanic. It's from the landslide, which is kind of interesting. A landslide is producing something that looks volcanic. Makes me think. That's all I'm saying. Found at the Utah landslides generated by friction to melt rock, which, because this is here, this pseudo-tacholite, it means that the rock had to move fast enough to melt the rock, or the landslide had to move fast enough to melt the rock to make this pseudo-tacholite. So let's maybe do that and then put pseudo. Yeah, I spelled it how it was spelled. Okay. Through frictional melting. Earthquakes, large-scale landslides, and impact events. Impact. So that was another thing. Impacts are not impacts as we know them, as I've demonstrated in many instances. That they also are the result of the Earth's expansion process, at least the ones from 541 to present, generally speaking. So that this is present in impacts kind of points to some sort of landslide aspect to the impact structure that's actually happening in the global flood process. But yeah, had to move fast in order to melt the rock to make this. Estimated speeds of 100 to 200 miles per hour. So we've got estimated speeds of 100 to 200 miles per hour over here. And we've got estimated speeds of 100 to 200 miles per hour over here. Both similar. Certainly it sounds like they're not the most confident in the numbers. We don't really know for sure, but this is what we're estimating it to be. Kind of response to that number is how they presented it when I was listening to presentations on it or however else. It didn't sound like people were especially firm on it, but certainly firm enough that it's going fast and to a point where it's moving like a car or faster kind of velocity as a mountain though. Imagine a mountain coming at you at 200 miles per hour. It's like, fuck. Yeah, like, well, that's pretty fast. There's no getting out of the way of that. It's like a deer in the headlights, I guess. Okay, so big chunk, then maybe go back here, wherever I was, on my images. And this is the actual detachment location at Hearts Mountain. It was up here and detached from here. This is volcanic, I believe, and this is like much softer rock, I believe, that it should have broken from, but it didn't. It slid on this surface. On this surface, everything above it broke away. I believe this is where it is interpreted that it came from. This exact location. Sliding on this surface. Okay, we're still at the Heart Mountain one. I thought this was kind of interesting. These almost looks like cutting between layers that was etching between and causing it to break away. There's Myron. Hey, Myron. His videos are awesome. Highly recommend them all. Seriously. Incredible. Thought this was cool. I don't remember what the topic was exactly. Maybe there was some detachment there. This is still there. I think this is where the landslide came from over here, actually. I couldn't tell for sure. I was trying to figure out what the current interpretation was. When he was talking about this area, it sounded like he was saying that's where it came from. And then this, it sounded like he was saying that's where it came from. I'm not sure if that's the same location or what. Certainly there were more than one landslide, so there's Heart Mountain, I think. I'm not sure. So this was Absaraka Volcanics by Heart Mountain, Rattlesnake Mountain, Pat O'Hara Mountain, and then Beartooth Mountains. If we go back over here, Beartooth is this interesting region. Like, what's going on here? Lots of etching. Lots of water. This is Beartooth Mountains. I'm not sure its exact boundaries, maybe there or something. So it sounds like it slid. Here's Pat O'Hara down this way. Around this, down this way, up this ramp to over here, and then continued over there for another chunk over there, while other portions slid out this way, some stopping there. That one's interesting because it almost looks like it, like if I look at it like this, right there, or maybe there, and then I go down here. There's a, like this shape that starts down here, goes up, bends, comes back, has a bend there. Maybe bends it more so over there, but it looks kind of like it got moved specifically relative to this general shape some reason. Like to its top, like its pole. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Okay, so back to this one though. Oh yeah, I was looking at pictures. I was trying to get the pictures of that one. So it's just some more pictures. There's one out there, way out there. There's another. This is Heart Mountain. The other one's McCullough. Whatever that one was called. The volcanoes. Yellowstone, Beartooth. The ridge that they go up and over, like that. So this is all from Myron Cook video. So apparently it went this way and this way around the Pato O'Hara and Rattlesnake Mountains. This is from Geology Hub. Which had a short video on it. And so I guess that they're saying it came from over there, I guess. Went this way. Slid over there. There. And over there. Okay, so this is the other one. The other one, this is, let's just go through this real quick. Because we already looked at some images. I believe this is as this overall structure slid, it like absorbed portions of the Bryan Head Formation. Big chunks of Bryan Head Formation from below layers were shoved up into the landslide material. I believe that's what this is. This was a injectite. Injectites from basal layer overpressured and injected upward into the fractured upper plate rocks. And then this one was, I wrote something about this. Near basal slip surface, we find crushed rocks in jigsaw, known as jigsaw class. Not unique to giant landslides, formed on fault zones globally, which made me say, are we sure these fault zones aren't just ultimately giant landslides that have been classified differently because they're so large scale? I think these these fault zones are just giant landslides unaccounted for as landslides that would be producing similar features because they're similar processes, and really, maybe 1 in 100, or he said 1 in 100 or 1,000 about of these jigsaw class will exhibit extreme cracking damage, like so. Like, these aren't always like this. They're probably all generally more like this up here. But sometimes they'll exhibit this. And he said maybe it's reflective. It reflects some slight expansion, almost as if it's been blown up, but can't completely disaggregate because of the confining pressure. I'm like, whoa, dude. That makes me think of just like cosmic systems, of like radioactive decay, of all sorts of things that are fundamental. It's almost like this is a result of a landslide in some way, on some fractal scale. Everything we see has some tie to some greater landslide type of mechanic. Let's keep going then. Okay, we caught up to some some stuff. Here's some of the landslide, Marysville volcanic field. So, because we're thinking in more traditional sense, there's this volcanism, and we want to tie the volcanism to the cause of the slide, right? There's this volcanic field, it's getting more and more volcanic material on the surface. Its weight is pushing down, and then it just kind of like squeezes out a portion that slides down a very slight slope that we've determined can produce just naturally without any presence of water, and that's like through the path can just produce some sort of lubricant to help it flow the distance by making the carbonate into CO2 or whatever reason we can come up with, no offense, to explain the flow, the motion without incorporating a global flood in the process and recognizing it was underwater at the time when it happened. So that's why this like downward arrow is going on, because it's inducing this slide. And this pink zone is all the Marysville volcanic field. So notice these ages, 25, 23, 22. That's when these landslides happened. And then some kind of, this was called the Ponsigance thrust fault system. I could not, he didn't write it down. It wasn't written anywhere on the screen, and I have no idea how to spell that, so that's just my enunciation of it. Ponsigance thrust fault to the south, which seemingly has some relationship to the other processes at play, but I didn't really know what to make of it. That's all I got for that one. But then there's volcanoes here. These volcanoes. Monroe Peak calderas here. Mount Belknap caldera here. And then the Mineral Mountains batholith here, which is not a volcano, not a caldera. So we got caldera, batholith. So that kind of confuses the potential of it being like volcano induced. But there's more to it. The Marysville volcanic field, part of a pre-Great Basin altiplano, 30 to 40 million years. So this was going on 30 to 40 million radiometric dating. Mind you, this is 25, 23, 22. So like if we go by traditional thought patterns, then like 5 to 15 million years have passed. And then this last one's really not even substantially in the region of the others, of the Marysville volcanic field, which is really more so over here. So it's a little anomalous in those regards. He said the slope is almost certainly less than a few degrees. 8,000 kilometers squared are cubed. I think he said squared. So maybe area of landslide collectively. And then the slide of 25, 23, 22. And then he said probably 17 or 18 for this last one. So even though he said less than 22 million here, he says probably 17 or 18 million. But this volcanism, this one here at the top here, is 23 million. So this slide occurs 25 million radiometric dating. 23. So it's after the slide volcanism. This one, 23 million slide, 19 million volcanism. This one, less than 22, 17 to 18. And then the batholith, 17 million. So they're like these couldn't have caused the landslides because they happened after the landslides. And he was saying maybe like the landslides, by removing pressure on the surface, allowed for venting that otherwise wouldn't have happened, which led to these volcanoes at those points, which kind of makes some sense. I don't know what to make of the volcanoes completely yet. Then I started to look at the basin and range because, as I wrote down here, the basin and range extension began 17 million radiometric dating. So we've got we've got a landslide at 25, a landslide at 23, a landslide at less than 22, maybe even 17 or 18, and then we've got extension of this entire region, like extending outward to become wider, as I as I personally became aware of in someone's research, that this extended by about 50%. So it was, which was around 250 miles. So let's say from over here, he did it at 39 degrees. He did it at 39 degrees. Let's do it at 39 degrees. 39 degrees. That seems further. It might have been kilometers then. Although, interestingly, it is like the width of like this line over. Almost like initially this flow was more so over here, between there and there, going this way, and then it extended over here to extend this region. Maybe when this current and this current got through and then started to like deflect off each other over into the batholith and apply a pressure westward over here, while probably other eastward currents were reducing in a similar way to like the other, like this current was reducing kind of concept over here, so that it could more easily extend, and then it extended by pressures from these currents flowing over into the batholith as like a backstop that they couldn't just etch away, so they just moved the entire, basically landslide this whole region out, and then this region, like dominoes, had we'll get into this other one real quick soon, so let's keep going through this till we get to my clips. So there's another slide, slide on the, so I watched another presentation by him. There's the more cleanly on a single image of the dates, volcanism, and the slide dates, showing they're not really, the volcanism is not causing the slide. So when we go back to Heart Mountain, it almost points away from that as being the cause, because this one's not. Unless we just say like the sheer mass of this accumulative volcanism in the overall region before and unrelated to these three caused these landslides. Okay, now we're on Sean Long's presentation, which, let's go over here. This got me looking into the basin and range. Watching a lecture by Dr. Sean Long, he pointed out a well-documented episode of northeast to southwest volcanism. From over here, starting over here somewhere, going southwest, northeast to southwest, from 45 million to 25 million. Which maybe is in this right here.
Even more important and more relevant for the basin and range, immediately following this was a very...
I won't, I can't play it with music, but is the music done? Both music's done? Okay, let's play it. Okay, let's play it.
Important event in the Great Basin between about 45 and 25 million years ago, kind of smack dab in the middle of the Cenozoic. We had a really well documented northeast, starting kind of up here by Elko, to southwest sweep of explosive silicic volcanism. We call this event the Great Basin Ignimbrite flare up, and this kind of more important and more relevant for the basin and range. Immediately following this was a very important event in the Great Basin between about 45 and 25 million years ago, kind of smack dab in the middle of the Cenozoic. We had a really well documented northeast, starting kind of up here by Elko, to southwest sweep of explosive silicic volcanism. We call this event the Great Basin Ignimbrite flare up.
Damn it, I was muted. Fuck. Fuck, I was muted. Sorry, guys. Oh, no. It was how long? It was a couple minutes. I don't think it was that long, but I was just saying, fuck. I was saying what he said. And then, let's go back a little bit. Okay, so extension, that his research is along this path. I should just read this again. Sorry if I already said it. The Great Basin ignimbrite flare-up at 45 to 25 million followed the 65 to 45 million flat slab subduction, which is, according to modern geology, at least, like in terms of explaining observations, that's what's said, is 65 to 45 subduction of a flat slab under western North America was occurring, which then led to compression. So there's a phase of compression then, and then this ignimbrite flare-up, and then this phase after the flare-up of extension. So there's a sequence there. And then I was just kind of saying, here's the Long Valley caldera over here. And it seems like it's related to this, where the current that was flowing through here and the current flowing from up here, maybe even at this width kind of thing. Like at this width down through here in opposition to a certain width through here that like matched each other to create some zones of influence. But I was thinking maybe it produced this boundary, which then led to a encouragement of the currents over this way, which generally pushed against the Sierra batholith as a whole and contributed to a like large-scale landslide in the region, which was simultaneous to the extension of the Great Basin and Range, which basically, if we can find some slides here, and I was also saying here's the age of these contours and the calderas. Pre-contractional, pre-extensional, or post-contractional, pre-extensional datum of this flare-up. Truly a Rosetta Stone. So he took stuff like this and just rearranged it back to what it would have been to determine how much extension occurred. I won't go through the details. It was pretty complicated sounding. But ultimately, there's different regions of extension that happened, which I'm sure relate to some of these things we're talking about, but I haven't really thought about it that much yet. I was thinking in like shallogram ammonite shapes. Like, I think there's an eddy centered like right here in this overall region that maybe would lead to certain like different regions within the structure that would have different extension, but I don't think that's necessarily what's happening. So I didn't really know what to make of it. 180%, so almost triple the length extension. Presently, almost triple the length. So he said domino style. Here's a good picture of it. It was like this, and then now it's more like this. So this is basin range, basin range, basin range, basin range, basin range. So I'm thinking almost like an accordion or something, like this region over here got pushed out but that led to an actual tipping over of the layers that were compressed. He put it like a book on a shelf. Like if you have a row of books with one of those like stands to hold it in place kind of thing, and then you take that away and the book falls, and then the next book falls, and then the next, and then they just kind of tip over. Well, that thing's applying a pressure inward to hold the the books in place. So if you take that pressure away and the books fall, similarly, if you take the pressure away of the currents pressing over here, then suddenly the pressure over here pushes more to a point where it's slid out a bit, like the whole region over here, which then allowed for this extension to happen. But also this, not only the was there just general pressure over here, there's actual pressure from these currents going up this way and down this way and meeting each other here and going this way, which is why I find it really interesting that Long Valley Caldera is here. So I was thinking it moved over, extended the whole region first, and then at the end of the process, really, the Long Valley Caldera formed. Where over here, a similar thing happened where it caused a landslide ultimately to extend the region, and then a volcano happened similarly at like the boundary where this current is flowing and pushing this way, while from over here though, like from generally over here flowing down this way, pushing this way, pushing into this region and causing a landslide, but then still pushing into the region, I guess up higher at some boundary like the batholith, which then leads to, in this instance, a smaller volcano than the super volcano over here. Let's hit play on this too. Oh, that's real loud, huh? Whew. Sorry guys, that was real loud probably. Luckily I caught it before I kept going. Holy crap. I gotta put it down to like 20% on my thing to have it be like a good amount. It might not even be audible now, but that's better than too loud. So basically, this current probably comes in this way. From over here, though, this side. It's like furthest west or north possible route, like over here, maybe through here. Through this region, maybe through here too, and through here, and kind of joins over here, and this way, goes like these ways, and goes over this way, and this current's probably actually coming up this way. Let's get that out of here. Up this way, and maybe going a little further than as the earth expands. Like this is an earlier landslide up here, like 50 million, 40 million. Meaning the conditions were different. Over down here, it's almost like the balance was more towards the north, and then it moved. It caused a landslide from this pressure this way, landslide over here as this current and this current we're causing a flow, a pressure over this way. And then the landslide occurred somewhere over here. Somewhere over here. That then went this way though. Over here and out of the pressure of those, but also with this current generally. And maybe also I don't know. Thinking there's some like this current goes this way. And then it's to the Beartooth region. It's almost like this current, especially, that maybe also had this coming over there. To then flow here. And then divided here. Like it was going this way, but it really needed to go that way too to relieve pressure, so it ended up creating a landslide that way. Let's see, these volcanoes are called Sunlight Volcano, I want to say. I wrote them down somewhere. Sunlight Volcano, Crandall Volcano. She's also younger. I'm not sure what the papers say about this. If Hard Mountain slid at 50 million and then this happened. Crandall Volcano. I mean, it's in Wikipedia, but so be it. Okay, this is not Wikipedia. Just looking for numbers. Time periods are probably not good enough. Let's go Scholar. Sunlight Volcano, and even put in Hard Mountain maybe. Some bullshit. Slide and placement occurred approximately 48.9 million. But I'm not sure. About the volcano. Why would it be that sequence? Landslide volcano. And why would the flood be inducing volcanoes? I mean, it's probably through the surface, first of all. It's not just on the surface, it's like saturated through the crust of this flood. At least deep enough that maybe it's interacting with magma that... I know water can make solid rock become liquid, so possibly something to do with that too. Just hot water under the pressures, and where it's like steam, like helping to encourage a venting that leads to volcanism at times. Okay. So, what do we got? We didn't really like conclude anything really, but we went through some interesting details that relate to my last video a lot. Not sure how far I'll continue to research these specific topics unless I have some more insight to add. Like, this looks like a node over there. There. I just wonder if there's certain focal points that point to things. So I was gonna say, the hard mountain. It's really interesting. The hard mountain slide occurs, right, and then this ignimbrite flare-up goes from northeast to southwest, moves over this way, and then these landslides happen, as well as subsequent, like these landslides happen, and then extension of the Great Basin occurs, and then Long Valley Caldera. Let's see. Super volcanoes, North America, besides Yellowstone. Oh yeah, this one, 30 million, Utah. Let's see where that is. Kind of like central to this region. Not sure if that's where the caldera is. Let's see. Coordinates. Colorado. This one's got coordinates. Let's see. Oh, it's way over there. Relatively in that same line, though. If we go from there to Long Valley. I don't know why exactly. One of a number of calderas that formed during a massive ignimbrite flare-up in Colorado, Utah, and Nevada from 40 to 18 million years ago. Site of massive eruptions about 28 million years ago. Let's put this in order. Got some Idaho. Oh, that's Yellowstone. Okay. Yellowstone. Yellowstone. Yellowstone, Yellowstone, Yellowstone. And then the one we just looked at. Maybe if I search for this. Same general area, so it must be around here. That one. And then all the way back to 466 million? Ejecta. 500,000. 600,000. There's Long Valley in this list, though. So it's missing some. List of super volcano eruptions. It's not Wikipedia. Sure, let's try that one out. Alright, didn't have a list at all. Two, Long Valley. 3, Valles Caldera. Valles. Oh my god. Is this map terrible positioning or what? Seven. Margarita. Okay, we saw that one. Let's see, Bennett Lake. Caldera. $50 million. Super wrong. Nope. What is this number? Oh. Nevada, 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 Nevada. Japan, I guess. Japan and Nevada. Andes and a bunch of Yellowstone stuff, but Nevada. Marysville. I should probably stop. I'm just gonna... I don't know. There's definitely something to it, though, in terms of the relationships to current flows. I'm not feeling like I've made quite as much progress, if you will, as the subtleties of the current flows in this video. The last video about Bighorn Basin. But, I was hoping I could kind of like be like, it went exactly according to this current, but the paths are so, like, they're not visible anymore, as far as I know. I guess maybe it went that way. That's pretty interesting. Dude. It's just clear resistances from like currents from both sides that then have a boundary point that it just wouldn't do this according to erosion. That takes currents flowing into the location from both sides to create the subtleties. I guess that. And that must be a caldera. I believe the ones we're looking at, though, are as potential causes of this actual motion was this one. And somewhere else. I guess maybe it was this one. That's like center to this diamond. And then that one's relatively center to this structure like there. Something, this side's not very defined, but... And then they're divided by this current flow coming in this way, and this current flow coming in this way, running into each other. This one actually flows up and into this caldera. I wonder, does this one flow over into this caldera? Not so immediately. This thing just goes into this resistance from this side, coming up this way, from down up here, going down into resistance, bends off this way, and just goes right into it. If this flows over into the other one, that would be crazy, but it doesn't look like it does so. At least not as readily. It almost looks like it runs into it, into opposition. It creates a boundary here, boundary here, boundary here, boundary here, boundary here. As we go up here, boundary over... It goes through here. Looks like there's some opposition here, though. So like a current's flowing in this way, running into there, and this current's flowing in this way, running into sort of like over here, just some way smaller scale. So it's not necessarily getting through there either to make it like over there. Not sure. So maybe it bends off further back over this way. Goes up this way. Wraps in here. While also going out there and transporting Hard Mountain, leading to similar time frames of these with the landslides to actually make them look connected, because they're generally connected, but they're not actually. The landslides are not the result of the volcanism in a similar way as elsewhere. Okay, dudes, I gotta go. This is way too long. I'm really concerned this will be over 10 gigs also. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Later. Thanks for watching. Sorry if it was a little less exciting than it can be. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, especially when I mess up the audio. Alright, peace.